It seems like everywhere you turn these days, there's something new happening in music,
It
right?
really does.
You find these amazing new artists online who seem to come out of nowhere, and then there's all this talk about AI, like, writing songs.
Right.
And it just makes you wonder, what are the forces really at play here?
Yeah.
What's actually going on?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what this deep dive is all about.
Absolutely.
We're really going to cut through all that noise and try to get a clearer picture of, all the different factors that are reshaping how we make music and listen to music today.
Yeah. And we've gathered a really interesting mix of sources for this one
Yeah.
to kind of help us make sense of it all.
Right.
So we've got some deep analysis of like industry trends, some financial reports,
Yeah.
even some of the latest news articles that are covering these debates about AI and copyright.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're looking at pieces from Musically, the Science Survey, Euronews, The Times, and The Guardian.
Wow.
Yeah, and pulling in some broader industry data as well.
Okay.
So it's a lot.
It's a lot to cover, but it sounds like we've got all the bases covered to really get into this.
Definitely a comprehensive look.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, our mission here is to go beyond just the headlines
Right.
and really try to understand how power is shifting towards independent artists.
Okay.
What this means financially for the big record labels, and then this whole AI thing.
Oh, yeah.
Which has like both these exciting possibilities, but also some potential challenges for people who make music.
For sure. Some big questions there.
Yeah, for sure.
But let's maybe dive right in with like a major development that's been happening, and that's the rise of the independent artist.
Okay.
Like, what's so amazing to me is how digital technology has really leveled the playing field.
Okay.
It's not a system anymore where major labels are the only ones who can get your music produced and distributed.
Yeah, it's like the internet just blew up that old model.
Exactly.
Artists can literally record high-quality music just in their bedroom if they wanted to.
Cool.
Upload it straight to Spotify or Apple Music or wherever and connect with people all over the world. And they're basically cutting out those major labels as the gatekeepers, both for the creative process and for how people actually hear their music.
And with that comes something so valuable, and that's control. So independent artists now, they have the power to decide what they want to do with their music, their brand, how they want to release it, all these things that used to be decided by the label.
Yeah.
So they're kind of operating more like the CEOs of their own like creative ventures.
It's true.
That's pretty cool.
And the data really backs this up. I mean, I was looking at some figures from Media Research, and they said that independent labels and artists as of last year held something like 46.7% of the recorded music market share.
That's almost half.
That's almost half.
That's huge.
It's not just a small thing anymore.
No, that's a fundamental change.
Yeah.
And I think what that figure shows us is that it's not just about, more artists choosing to go solo.
Yeah. It's about a power shift.
Right.
Like, artists are realizing that they can own their music. They can control it.
Right.
And still reach a global audience through all these platforms that didn't even exist like 10 years ago.
That's true.
And this is forcing major labels to kind of rethink their whole value proposition.
So with independent artists and labels now making up almost half the market, what does that mean for those big record labels?
Oh, it's a challenge.
Right.
I mean, their dominance is definitely being tested.
For sure.
So, as more and more artists decide to go independent or sign with smaller labels, the market share of those big labels shrinks, and so does their revenue.
Right. So it's not that the music industry is making less money overall. It's just that it's being divided up differently.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a redistribution of wealth in a way.
Yeah.
All that money that used to go to a few major labels is now being spread out among a much wider range of players. That must have a pretty big impact on the financial stability of those big companies.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
Like we're potentially looking at a long-term impact.
Yeah.
If this trend keeps going, they have to adapt to a world where they're not the only game in town anymore.
Okay, so the traditional music industry is already dealing with some pretty big changes.
Right.
And then you add AI to the mix.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like AI is everywhere these days.
It really does.
And it's definitely impacting how music is being made.
Absolutely.
So how is AI actually being used to create music now?
Well, it's pretty amazing how sophisticated AI tools have become at actually composing music.
Yeah.
We're not talking about just basic loops or patterns anymore. Some of these algorithms can create like really complex and nuanced pieces.
Wow.
Across all kinds of genres,
Yeah.
Think about things like generative adversarial networks or GANs.
Okay.
and recurrent neural networks.
Wow. So this is like way beyond just computer-generated beats or something.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Much more sophisticated than that.
Okay, so if AI can write a song that sounds good, does that mean it's really music in the same way that something a human writes is music?
That's a big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really makes you think about what originality means.
Yeah.
And, we connect with music emotionally.
Yeah.
And so much of that comes from the human experience.
Yeah.
So can a computer really capture that same feeling?
That's a huge question for artists and songwriters.
Absolutely.
And then, beyond that, there's also the practical concern of what happens when you've got AI that can churn out music so quickly.
Oh, yeah. The potential for market saturation is huge.
Right. Like, what if we just get flooded with AI-generated tracks?
Exactly.
Does that devalue the music that humans make?
It's possible.
Yeah.
It's like anything, when something becomes too available, it starts to feel less special.
And there are real financial consequences too, right?
Definitely.
I was reading that musicians could actually lose a lot of income because of AI.
Yeah, the International Confederation of Societies of Authors and Composers, CSAC,
Okay.
they put out a pretty serious warning.
Okay.
They said that music creators could lose as much as 24% of their income by 2028
Wow.
because of AI.
Mm.
And to put a number on that, there could be a loss of like 10 billion over 5 years.
10 billion euros. That's a lot of money.
It's huge.
Yeah. So AI might offer some cool new tools for making music, but it's also a real financial threat to people who make a living from music.
Definitely.
And then, of course, there's the whole issue of copyright.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
How does AI even fit into the whole system of intellectual property rights for music?
It's tricky, right?
Yeah.
Because the big debate is about all the data that's used to train these AI models.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that data is copyrighted music.
Right.
So the question is, do AI developers need to get permission and licenses to use that music?
That seems like a pretty big deal.
It is, and some big players in the industry are pushing back hard against the idea that anyone can just use copyrighted music to train AI.
Yeah. I remember reading about how Sony was really critical of some of those proposals.
Yeah, The Guardian reported that Sony's been very vocal about this.
Okay.
And they're saying that if AI can just learn from and copy existing music without any obligation to the original creators, it undermines the whole idea of creative work.
Right.
And the systems we have in place to make sure artists get paid for their music.
And if there's no incentive to create new music, then what happens?
Exactly.
So we've got this rise of independent artists and this explosion of AI in music.
Yeah, it's a lot happening at once.
How is the music industry adapting to all of this? What are the challenges and maybe even some opportunities that are coming out of these big changes?
Well, for independent artists, the biggest plus is the freedom.
Sure. Creative freedom and maybe even more money.
Definitely. They can potentially make more money.
Yeah.
Because they're keeping a bigger share of what they earn.
But they also have to do a lot more themselves, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's not just about making music anymore. It's about being your own manager and promoter and marketer.
Exactly.
It's a lot.
It is. They're running their own businesses, basically.
So what about the record labels? How do they stay relevant in this new world?
They have to adapt. There's no question about that. Like, they need to move away from those old restrictive contracts.
Right.
And really show artists why they're still valuable.
So maybe it's less about being the boss and more about being a partner.
Yeah, like offering more flexible deals and actually using technology like AI to help artists.
Interesting.
They could use AI to analyze data, see what fans want, and to target marketing campaigns more effectively.
So they still have a lot to offer.
They do. They have resources that individual artists often don't have.
And what about the bigger picture? I mean, for the whole music industry, what needs to happen to make sure things stay fair and sustainable with all this new technology?
I think the biggest thing is that we need some clear rules about AI.
Okay.
Ethical guidelines and regulations. It's not just about protecting artists' incomes. It's about making sure that we have a music industry that's fair for everyone.
So we need the tech people, the policymakers, and the music industry all working together.
Absolutely.
To figure this out.
Yeah. I mean, Sony called some of these AI plans unworkable.
Right.
And that really shows how urgent this is.
Yeah. We need solutions that work for everyone involved.
Exactly.
This all matters for us as listeners, too.
For sure.
Even if we don't make music ourselves.
Right.
Because these changes affect what kind of music gets made, how we discover it, and how artists get paid.
Absolutely.
It's about fairness, and artistic integrity.
Yeah.
And what it means to be creative in a world where technology is changing everything.
I mean, think about those Spotify ghost artists
Oh, yeah.
that the Times wrote about, you know.
Like musicians were totally anonymous and just creating tracks to make money from streaming.
Exactly. Or all the discussions about how much artists actually earn from Spotify.
Right.
Even though Spotify talks about those big payouts for a few top artists.
Yeah, like The Guardian was reporting on that. And these are all connected to what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
The ease of digital distribution,
Yeah.
all these new ways to create music.
Yeah.
And the fact that streaming is now how most people listen to music, it really makes you think about where your music comes from, you know?
It does.
And whether the artists you love are actually benefiting from their work.
Yeah.
It's not just about the music itself.
It's about the whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
And the people who create it.
So to wrap up our deep dive here, I mean, we've really explored how independent artists are gaining more and more power thanks to technology.
Absolutely.
And how AI is this major force that's changing everything.
It's transformative.
Yeah.
But it also comes with some big challenges.
And these are not small changes. They have real consequences.
For sure.
For artists, for the music industry, and for all of us as listeners. It feels like we're at this turning point in music history.
Yeah.
And it raises this question that I think is really important for all of us.
What's that?
As AI becomes more and more a part of how music is made and how we listen to it, what do we think is the true value of human artistry? You know, like what makes music made by humans special, and how do we make sure that human creativity can not just survive, but thrive in this new world?
Yeah, that's a question I think we all need to be thinking about.
I agree.
It's the future of music.
Yeah.
It really is.
It's exciting and a little bit scary all at the same time.
Definitely a lot to consider.
For sure.
It'll be interesting to see where things go from here.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining me for this deep dive.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, this has been really fascinating.
Lots to think about.
So much to think about.
Yeah.
All right. And to everyone listening, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.